In this lesson, we'll be learning how to create videos by using the video component that's built into Adobe Animate. I'm just going to come out to my browser right now and give you a demonstration of the finished piece right here. And what we have is when we land, we have a video screen over here with the video on pause. And I have two buttons here that are animated. As you can see, when I mouse over, there's that little radar blip animation. And I'm going to have you create one as well for this assignment. At the very top, I've just got a nameplate, and I've just used the gradient inside the fill with a stroke on it. So I'm going to want you to do a gradient with minimum of 3 colors in it as well, please. And then with the text tool, just put your name on the top. I'm going to show you how you can actually create a little drop shadow as well in Animate. But the main feature today is creating videos. Now, if I go over to this video that starts in the pause mode, I can click it to play it. I can also click it to stop it, and it has the volume controls here and the playhead controls and a manual play button as well on top of the full screen. So I'm going to try the full screen. It's going to get a little bigger than my capture software, but let's just click on that anyway. And that can go full screen, and I'm just going to collapse it again here. So all those cool video features are built into the component, if you will. So let me click on the second button down here. And that takes us to our second video, which is on the keyframes on frame 5. And I'm just going to click it to stop it there. That one was set to autoplay. So our first video we're going to set to not be on autoplay, and our second video will be on autoplay. Because they're already there and they engage the button, as a user interface courtesy, they're expecting to see the video at that point. But when they land on a page, it's still something that they may not be aware of. So as a courtesy, we typically do not have autoplay when a user first lands on the page. And that has nothing to do with the technical features, but that's just good interface. Okay, so there we have it again. I can go back and I can click play and stop, autoplay, and stop. So that's what we're going to create today. So let me just bounce back into Adobe Animate here and just show you the main timeline, the scene one timeline. It could have been done on 2 frames. I just spread it out, a little easier to see, I find. And I have 2 distinct keyframes that are marked with frame labels. All my code is in the top frame in my actions layer in layer 1. My buttons are in a single keyframe that span the duration of the movie. I do have 2 distinct keyframes for my 2 different videos. And then my graphics, which I'll highlight here, is just the title and this little frame around the video component. And that's all on the bottom layer. Okay, just going to click away. So let me click on this thing called the video component. It's something that's built in, and when we start to build this, I'll show you how you can access it. But if I go up to Window, well, you would access it through the Components panel. I might as well pop that up and bring that up here. But I already have one on screen on this finished version, so let me just show you this other window called Components Parameters. When I have my video selected or my component selected, this is where I would key in the various properties that I'd like. The main one, of course, is the video source. The source or the video that's going to be playing has to be inside of your project folder. So let me just quickly bounce out to the desktop and show you the project folder right here as it should begin. Now this should have been downloaded from you, as well as some sounds, and I've uncompressed it. So in the video assets, I've got my 2 videos. They're MP4s, and I have a lot of sounds in the sounds folder. You're only going to need 1 or 2 button sounds. You won't even need these soundtracks, but they're from our previous sound exercise, so you can grab them there. Okay, this way you'll have lots of sounds to pick from, but we're going to use both of these provided videos that you should have downloaded off the website. Okay, so I am now going to go back into Animate, and I think we'll start a new file. I'm just going to save this existing file, and I'm going to start a new file and save it in that same project folder. So new. I'm just going to go with a small size here, the standard. Make sure you're on HTML5 canvas. Create, and I'll immediately do a save as. And that's where I establish where it goes and what it's called. So I've got, let's see here. I believe in here, yeah, video project folder, and that's the folder for this new assignment. So just name it last name, and I believe the assignment is 11A, but if it's not, just assign a number accordingly. So I'm going to go last name 11A, save it in that same common project folder, please. Part of the reason for that is when we start to build this using components and external videos, it's going to generate other files in that same folder, and it's very much like a web root folder where the pathway needs to stay constant. So we always put it in a project folder. Ultimately, that folder would be uploaded to the website. Okay, so here we are with a blank new file. I'm just going to start by creating some very quick layers for myself. So I'll just start at the bottom, graphics. I'm just naming them here and creating them. Here I will call this video 1, and I could put them on the same layer. I think, yeah, I'll actually just call that one videos. Okay, and the third layer I will call buttons, and the fourth layer I will call labels for my frame labels, and the fifth layer I will call actions. And that will be for my code. Okay, definitely want to save that. Okay, so let's begin. We basically got 3 sections, if you will, to work with. We're going to create the videos, which is the topic of the day. A bit of graphics on the page, namely our name on top of a gradient, and a little frame around the area where the video will be, and some buttons, and they will be animated. So I've got layers designated for each. Why don't we just skip straight to the video right now? So I have the video layer highlighted. Of course, my playhead is on frame 1. It's the only frame right now with frames in it. And I'm going to go up to Window and call up my components. I'll just move that up there. And I'm going to need the component parameters as well. So I'll just put that a little bit lower here. So to create video, you need to apply what's called a video component. There are various things called components in the components panel, but we're going to go to the video one and cut to the chase, and you drag and drop the component to the stage. And I'm just going to say double check that you are on the appropriate layer to drop that in. So now I have a component on my stage. You may have noticed once I dragged that onto the stage that my components parameters kind of became alive, and I can start to work with those properties. You see here we have autoplay, controls, looping, preloading, and a poster image. That's the image that you could start with. I'm not going to bother with a poster image today, but it could be, it's your first frame when it's in pause mode. But I do need to get the source. Okay, so as you recall, all our videos are in our project folder, because the way this works is it actually takes an external video and plays it in the file. So you're always going to have that external video in the same pathway relative to the file. In other words, it should always be in the project folder, and ultimately that whole folder would be uploaded to the website. Okay, so to make that change, or to go and access a file, I'm going to click on the little pencil, which is Edit, and then click on the Browse. I'm just going to move this up here a bit. Browse. Okay, and let me just go into my video projects folder, and I do have them in a folder called Video Assets, and I'm going to choose the one called Dentine and click Open. Keep the checkbox on Match Source Dimensions. It will adjust this according to the original size. Click OK. And there we go. And I'm just going to save that. Okay, I'm actually going to see what happens here when I try to test this movie in the browser. And there it is. and I click on it and it triggers it to play. I click on it again, it triggers it to stop. You'll notice underneath when I mouse over, the controls appear. And we have volume, mute, the slider, the play and stop button, and we even have full screen. I'll click on this, but it is of course going to expand larger than my capture software. But full screen is also a possibility here. And I'll just collapse that again. So actually already done applying the video. It's that easy. Okay, so we're going to decorate this and we're going to create a little bit of control where we can have two different videos to play according to which button is pressed. Okay, so I'm just going to bounce back over to Animate. And that's it. Now if I wanted to swap out for a different movie, I could just click on that and go and search for a different movie. All right. This one I'm actually going to turn off the autoplay. Okay, so when we land, this will be intended for the first home page, if you will. When we land here, it will not play automatically. And every time we do a test movie, it does switch to the output panel. So I'm going to switch over to the timeline here. And I see a little asterisk telling me I should save. Okay. So really that's it for that video. We're going to work on the one sort of page here, and then we'll span out to create our second page. So let's start on the graphics now, I guess. I'm actually going to give my stage a background color. I'm going to click on the stage, the empty part. And you may not see my color picker. It's going a little outside of the capture software, but I'm going to pick that school bus yellow. And then go down to my graphics layer. Okay, so highlight the layer you wish to create the graphics on. And I'm going to start by just creating a rectangle a bit bigger than my video component to make a frame. I'm going to turn off the stroke, and I'm just going to use the pure fill color. Let's see here. This is just for fun, I guess. You know what, I'll go with something darker here. Maybe this very dark navy blue. If I don't like it, I can always come and change it. And just drag that accordingly, and I can just let that be, and there we go. Very simple graphic. Just saving as I go here. And I'm also going to create a backdrop for my name. So on this one I will apply a stroke, and I'll make it black. And the color I'm going to swap out for a gradient, but I'll still pick a lighter color to start with. Okay. And I'm just going to draw this rectangle up in the top corner here to accommodate the width of my name, first and last name. I will double click it with my move tool, my selection tool, and just increase the stroke a bit here. Okay, I'll say 4 looks nice, I guess. Just save that. And now I want to put a gradient in here. So I'm going to select the fill. I don't need to select the stroke. And go up to my color panel. And up here again, as you know, we can switch over to various types of gradients. I'm going to go with the linear gradient inside. If you want to try radial gradient, by all means be my guest. It'll have a slightly more interesting look, maybe like a target, but I'm going to stick to linear. And it defaulted to the black and white, so I'm just going to switch my colors out. I'll pick the white color and I'll go with the really deep red right there. I'm going to add a green in the middle, so I'm going to click in the middle, directly underneath the bar, pick a different hue, and kind of go brighter on that, like that. And I'll swap the black, so I'm going to click on the black chip over here on the left for a rich blue color. There we go. RGB in reverse. Okay, I can click away to see what that really looks like, and I'm happy with that. I'm just going to save. Okay, so let's put our name on top of it. Even the name can go on this graphics layer. They're all stacked. What you don't want to do though is put two merged elements, graphic elements, over top of each other on the one layer, or you will be taking a bite out of the bottom one. Text is a bit different. Okay, so I'm going to go to my text tool. I will choose a fill color of white. And Arial bold, you know what, that's fine by me. Now with the text, there is static text and dynamic text as my choices. Keep it on static text. I am going down to my paragraphs, making sure that it is centered. Then I'm going to click in the middle here. And I'll just type my name. first and last name, Daniel Ouellette. And I'm just going to go to my selection tool and either drag that into position, or while it's selected, I can use my arrow keys to nudge it. So while I'm on the text tool, let me show you a nice little feature. I'm going to move my components window a bit here, where I can add a filter. Now you'll notice with the text selected in properties, it says no filters added and it's grayed out. If I want to add a filter, and what I'm thinking about is a drop shadow here, I'd have to turn it into a movie clip. So I'm going to do that for the purpose of adding a filter. So with the name selected, modify, convert to symbol. Movie clip, I'll just call it name. And go OK. And suddenly I have the plus sign visible under filters. So I'm just going to click on there, give it a little drop shadow. And you know what? I'm happy with the default that I'm looking at here, but you can go in and affect some of these features. Now, I will warn you, in the HTML5 format, the strength doesn't really get acknowledged. There's probably a better way to do this with JavaScript, but it's a little too much for today's lesson. So we're going to just go with the built-in filter here. If you want to do sophisticated filters, such as drop shadows, JavaScript will allow you to do that through the code. Okay? But we're just going to go with the easy one today. All right, so I've applied a filter to a movie clip that has text of my name. If I wanted to edit that text, of course, I would have to double click it and then go in and edit it. And you can see here the movie clip called name inside of scene 1. I'm just going to bounce back up to scene 1 though and deselect by clicking in an empty area and save my file. Okay, so there's our gradient. There's a little text, little trick on how to create drop shadows. They have to be applied to a symbol basically. So that could also be a button or a movie clip. So speaking of buttons, let's go to our buttons layer, select it, and I'm going to draw a circle. I'll fill it in with a brighter color here. I guess I'll use the bright green with a black stroke. And with my shift key down, I'm just going to draw a button about that big. Okay, I will double click it to select. If I want to change the stroke size, I can change it here. I think I will make it a little bolder. Maybe 6. All right, so with that still selected again, I'm going to convert that to a symbol and make it a button. Convert to symbol, button, and I'll call it BUT_green. That's the name it will take on in the library. Okay, save that. And I'm going to double click it so I can create a mouse over feature as well as an animation. So I'll keyframe the overstate so that when the mouse goes over it, F6 to keyframe, select it on the stage, pick a new color. I'm going to go to my color picker here and go with something even lighter, like that. Okay, so it goes from that to that. And I'm going to create an animation directly above. Okay, so let me select the stroke, only the stroke, copy it, create a new layer directly above. I'm going to name that layer right away, call it animation. I will keyframe the overstate. So F6. And with that keyframe selected, I'm going to click away for a second and select it again there. Edit, paste in place. Now immediately I want to turn that into a movie clip, if you recall from our animated buttons exercise. So right away, modify, convert to symbol, movie clip. I'm going to call it radar. It's going to imitate a radar blip, so I'll call that radar. That's what it will appear as in the library. And double click that. It's now a movie clip. And I'm just going to animate it over 30 frames. So I'm going to go to frame 30, keyframe it, F6, go to my free transform tool, make it bigger from the center point. Now I will hold my shift key down. Don't get too big, but that's plenty right there. Go back to my selection tool. With it still selected, I'm going to turn that color, opacity down to 0. And I do that again through the color panel under the A for alpha. It has to be selected for this to work. Drag that down to 0, and all I have to do now is put a shape tween on that first keyframe. So let me move my playhead back here, right click the first keyframe, create shape tween, and if I drag my playhead, it gets bigger and it disappears, as you can see. Good to go. Let me just get out of this movie clip, back to the button. And at this point, I think it's prudent to span layer 1 all the way to the hit zone. So I'm going to just span that all the way to the hit zone with an F5. And you know what? We're going to add a sound here as well. So above the animation, let's add one more layer. Okay, and in this layer, I'm going to keyframe the down state. Hang on a second here. Let me just select that. Okay, F6 to keyframe. And I'm going to drop a sound in there. It will be a button sound. Oh, you know what? I have to import them. I did show you where they were when we started, but I actually didn't import them yet. So let me save my movie here first, my file, and then import my various assets. So import to library. And I'm just going for some sounds right now. Now these will get embedded. These sounds will be embedded. So I'm going to just pick them all and I'll just have them to choose from. Okay. Now they should appear in my list of available sounds. So again, I'll click on that frame there, go back to that list, and I'll just pick latch thick. Okay, just save that again. So if it works right, I will get a sound. Oh, I see it's pushing over into the hit zone. So let's actually keyframe that hit zone, F6, to isolate it only in the down state, just as you see it here. Okay, so we did a lot in that button actually. I'm just going to save. We created an animation. We added a sound as well. Okay, let me get right back to scene 1. So I'm going to create another button like this, but I did a lot of heavy lifting there and there's no reason to have to start it from scratch. So if I want to duplicate this button, I would do that in the library. I could duplicate an instance of it, but then they would both look the same on the stage, even if I was to make a change in the graphics. So let's go over to our library. And where's that button? It's right there, BUT green. So I'm going to right click, duplicate, and I'm just going to change the name to BUT, I guess purple. I'll make a purple one. BUT_purple. Okay, now it's still green in color, but I will drag it to the stage. And then I can double click it to go inside and make any changes I want. But the nice thing is that all of that stuff with the sound and the animation is already done. So I'm just on the up frame right now. I'll click there, go to my colors, pick something that's kind of in the purple area like that, and then go to my overstate, click it again, same idea here, and get a lighter version of that, and we're good to go. I'm going to keep the same sound, I'm going to keep the same animation. But it is a distinctly different button in the library. Again, save. I'm going to align. These are close, but I'm going to select them both and just go up to Modify Align. Right here, Align Horizontal Centers. And it's being blocked, but now they are perfectly aligned horizontally. With them both selected, of course, I can just move them. But let's just save that. So all of our heavy lifting is done, I would say. Now, I do want to make a separate set of keyframes for a second video. Okay, so I'm just going to span out to frame 10. I could do this just on frame 2, but just to make it easier to see, I'm going to go to frame 10, select them all down, F5. And then over on frame 5, I'm going to select, just click away there, select frame 5. Actually, I can just make sure I'm on the labels layer with my playhead on frame 5 and hit F6. Create a keyframe there. And I need to do the same on my videos layer. Just the two, the video and the label layer. So again, with the playhead on frame 5, with the video layer selected, I have a keyframe on each. Okay, so let's put frame labels in for our navigation, and then we're going to put a stop command in our code. Because now we have several frames, the playhead is going to cycle through them until we tell it to stop. So I'm going to go to frame 1 in my labels, go to my properties, and I'll call it vid1. Vid1. Okay, and this next keyframe here we'll name vid2. Vid2. Okay, again I'm saving here on the keyboard. Now I believe I will have to go to this component and probably replace it with another new component. I'm going to try it first though. I'm going to see if I can change it in here, but I believe I'm going to have to kind of initiate a new one. I am on frame 5. It is keyframed. I'm going to just try to load the other one in there called Nutrigrain. Okay. Click OK. Now, these guys will also need to have instance names so that I can program some navigation to go to each of these designated frame labels. Okay, so I'm going to start on the purple button. I'll call it vid1 underscore btn. Okay, then on the green button, actually vid2, sorry, the purple button is meant to go to the second video, vid2 underscore btn. The green button is meant to go to the first video, vid1 underscore btn. So I'm using sort of this common name, naming convention, if you will. So now these have a name. I can access them through the wizard and start to program some navigation, particularly the one called go to and stop. But before we do that, let's just address the first keyframe and create a pause on frame 1. So let's designate this first frame in my actions layer. I will call up my actions panel, click on the add using wizard, and what would we want to do? We want to stop this timeline, click next, with this frame, finish and add. Okay, I'm going to close that for a minute and save it. Alright, so now we've got our stop command. I will next create some navigation. So I guess I could have kept my actions open here, but let's just go here. Again, with that first frame selected, add using wizard, go to frame label and stop this timeline. I have to manually type it in. And this is for, it could be for either. So I'm going to just start with vid1 and then click next. And it says how on a mouse click, which button, the vid1 button, finish and add. So I'm going to do the exact same thing for the second purple button. Go to frame label and stop this timeline. This one will be vid2. Next, on a mouse click, which button to click? The vid2 button, finish and add. So let's test this out. I'm going to save it. Okay, just save that. And we'll give this a quick test again here. Okay, so it is on pause. I can click. And I can click to stop. And of course, I do have all the controls underneath here, including full screen. And the purple button should take me to that second video right here, which was set to autoplay. Okay, and again, I can start and stop that at will by clicking on it or clicking on the controls underneath. Of course, I can scrub through as well, and all the things that these controls will allow you to do. So that's how you can create video inside of an HTML5 JavaScript Adobe Animate file. And I'd like you to create one of those today. Now, if for some reason I found it can be a little buggy in this latest version, sometimes you'll get the same video in both components. Let me just go back to Animate quickly here and describe. Despite having keyframes, sometimes the same video will show up in the other video regardless. So if that happens, what I suggest is just delete the component. Let's say I'm going over here, just delete the component, drag in a new video and reset it up and try it again. And that fixed it for me whenever that bug did occur. Okay, so again, this is our creating videos inside of Adobe Animate, running it through a web browser because of the HTML5 JavaScript programming. And that's our lesson for today.